Welcome into this carrier update, Donny. Gonna look at what's going on in the rate environment. You mentioned it, our rejection rate's at 4% or thereabouts, indicating that contract rates are above spot. We see that right here. And the interesting part is contract rates are above spot before you add in the fuel, whereas the spot rate's all in, and it's this.
And this is why rejection rates are so low.
Yep.
They're
and it's flatlined, which is interesting.
And it's very close. You know, here we're at 237. If you watch the gauge here, you know, 240, 235 has most all this in it all the way back to May.
Yeah.
Right around the middle of May. So there's not been a lot of fluctuation in the contract rates since then. We've seen a few moving down here, but then move right back up. But it's all been within just a few cents. Now, of course, this is a national average. Now, same with the national average for the NTI. It's got about an 8 or 10 cents, but this could mean a little bit more when you're moving that 5 and 6 cents because you've got rates. It's just telling you that rates somewhere are moving up and down, up and down. So here, is this steady? Yeah, a little bit, because here, we're up to 230, 233. This was kind of September-ish, and down to 222, so within about 10 cent variance. But if it was 10 cents on a lane, not too big of a deal. But when we're looking at a national average, it just lets us know, pay attention when it's going up or going down like this, and it just tells us rates are moving.
I think the interesting part here, again, is that the NTI includes fuel, and fuel prices have increased. They've started to kind of slim down. I know Sean Kingston alluded to it yesterday. They went back up because of what was going on over in Israel and the Middle East. But one of the interesting things is just because diesel prices went up, the actual underlying rate on the NTI has declined. Because if rates hold relatively steady.
Well, this is because this is what brokers do. Hey, you ran that load for me for $1,500 last week.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, diesel fuel's gone up a couple of cents, not a big deal. It's going to cost you $20, $30, $40 more on that lane. And I'm going to say, I want you to run for $1,500 again this week. And you're like, well, no, fuel went up. I need $1,550. And they're like, no, the next guyline's going to run for $1,500.
Exactly.
So you say, all right, I'll do it.
And your actual rate per mile
goes down just a little bit, and you lose it because fuel went up.
Yep.
And that's because of the market conditions are so soft for carriers right now.
You don't have a bargaining chip.
Therefore you have to be very flexible. They keep saying, don't take cheap freight. But these guys have got truck payments. They've got house payments. They got every kind of payment you can think of, and they have to keep that truck rolling.
And I think one of the interesting things is this is where the conversations that we've had right here are talking about knowing your cost per mile is so important, and it's taking the fuel part out, because that can vary greatly depending on where you fuel up, on what that cost per mile actually comes out to. But when you're taking an all-in spot rate, you want to know what that cost is going to be, because it will let you know where your break-even point is on the underlying rate.
And avoid the spot market.
Yeah, I mean, this just
try to find you some lanes that are more contract. But the problem is, if you're going to try to contract lanes right now, they're going to price it closer to this. If it's just a handshake deal, than they are this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's move in and see if we can get through a couple of these LMIs. So LMI, Logistics Manager Index, boots on the ground of what's going on here. Looking at inventories, they're still, throughout August, still in decline, which is what we need. But it's kind of funny as we get closer to these holidays that we're still seeing inventories in the U.S.
contract. Yeah.
Jumping forward a little more, transportation prices still in decline.
But at a slower rate than they were. And I think that's the important part, is like this, it's starting to level off, and you saw it with...
Yeah. And I like the LMI because this is one group of data. This is some data that's separate than our tender data.
This is survey data coming from boots on the ground individuals that we can overlay.
One more, if you look at it real quick, when you overlay them,
you can see the movements. How
they match very well. And its data sources come from two different areas telling the same story.
Absolutely. Donny, thank you so much for this update. We'll be sure to check in with you one more time before the end of the show. Right now, we'll hand it back over to Kaylee and Anthony.